time of the day. Really effective for big days on the mountain or just a really hard activity that your body just feels like it's still tight from. These are just some of my favorite stretches that I like to use, and I'm sharing them with you. So we're going to first start off with what is called a cat camel. And this is just going to open up our spine and kind of get some blood flow moving. You can get on all fours, and what we're going to focus on is basically hyperextending the back and sticking out the butt, and then we're going to tuck the tail and push through the shoulders, okay? And as I do that, I'm protracting and tucking, and as I go back into an arch, I'm going to retract my shoulders and stick out my hips. So it looks like this. And again, breathing is really important here, so the timing of breath is going to be really essential. So I'm going to breathe in and then breathe out. So I'm going to breathe in and then out. And again, the amount of reps is up to you. Wherever you feel like you've created some flow and some opening of the back, that's probably good enough. I always like to finish off with a little bit of butt wiggle. Always creates a little bit more opening of the back, okay? Our next stretch we're going to get into is a half kneeling split stance. So you're just going to be on one knee. We're going to kick out one leg, and the idea here is to stretch that inner thigh, okay? So first of all, I just want to work on the hinge with you. Just going to do a few hinging of the stretch only. So I'm just going to be pushing back the hips. And as I do that, foot placement's really important. Try to keep your foot flat on the ground. And then as you move down, try to imagine turning this hip into this leg, right? And what that does is allow us to maintain that stretch to that range of motion. I can lose the stretch by opening up my hips, and sometimes a lot of us with really tight adductors, we actually end up opening in the hip up as a compensation and really taking away from what we're trying to achieve. So think about turning that hip into the knee, okay? A few pumps like that, and then we're going to place our hands. And now what I'm going to do as I go back is I'm going to stick my ass out, and then I'm going to pull my butt forward. So out, and then forward, I'm going to tuck. So almost like a half of a cat camel, right? I'm just trying to, again, move that lower hip and back region. At the same time, I'm getting a nice inner stretch as I do that. Shoulders should be active the whole time, so I'm just pushing through my shoulders and maintaining that position there. We're going to go to the other side. Same thing, just start off with some hinges at first. I'm going to push my hips back and through. Always finish with a good hip extension at the end. You'll feel that stretch in the front as well as the inner thigh. Okay, after a few hinges, I'm going to get into just placing my hands down and now pushing back, sticking my butt out, and then tucking my tail. And again, really focusing on breathing, oxygenating those tight muscles. A lot of times tightness can be created just by lack of oxygen in the tissues. So really good rhythmic breathing through these stretches is really key. And it's really just up to you. Feel that flow and create that rhythm with the breath and the stretch. All right, so once we're done doing those, we're going to now put a little rotation into it. So here we are, we're reaching our butt back, we're going forward, back, and now I'm going to take my arm and I'm going to feed it through and rotate and reach as far as I can, and then push through my arm and my knee, and I'm going to rotate. I'm going to reach the sky. Another thing you can do is just grab the side of your face and almost do like just a thoracic rotation focus. Either way is fine. There's no right or wrong. The biggest focus here, intention, is just to get the rotation in that mid-back. And usually one side might be tighter than the other. So again, feel that out and make those reps a little higher on one side if needed, right? If you feel one side not as forgiving as the other, stay there for a bit longer until you feel that tissue change. All right, so now we're going to move into our classic here at Mountain Lab, our 90-90 hip switches. Really important to make sure that legs are at 90, so my heels aren't in tight. I'm staying here at 90. And what we're going to do is we're just going to switch. We're not going to get too focused on technique. I just want you to roll over into the other side. And when you get there, kind of lean into that lateral lineage of the body, right? So I'm feeling it on this leg for sure. I'm feeling that little IT band stretch. And you can see what I just did there on that rotation. I planted my hands. And that's another way to kind of keep your balance, keep your chest up, and keep grounded through the rotation. If you have the mobility or strength, you can kind of keep your arms up and rotate through. But again, just really important to find that angle, that space where you're just getting stretching on the side of the leg. That's the most important part. And hip switches, again, once you feel like, oh, it's not as tight anymore, I'm feeling better with that, then we can probably move to the other stretch. So 90-90 hip switch. Always feels good. Okay, next stretch is our half kneeling hip flexor stretch. I'm going to show you, without a doubt, I usually have a stick for this, but we're not going to use a stick today. We're just going to be in a half kneeling position, and what I'm going to focus on is rolling my hips back to start, and then I'm going to scoop or push my knee forward, okay? So think about grabbing that knee and rolling those hips forward, and you're really going to feel a deep stretch on the front part of your thigh. That would be our hip flexor potentially, or just some really tight quads. And this is a great, just a pulsing stretch, pushing forward until you feel like you're making some change and some range here. You actually feel like, oh, it's not as tight. Another way to increase that tension, hands in the air, and as I reach back, I'm going to reach forward, and then I'm going to pull my hip through and pull down with tension. Okay, so just think about pulling down with tension. And that sometimes, just that action itself kind of accentuates a little bit of a deeper stretch. Go to the other side. I'm going to reach up with my hand. And pull forward. And again, as many times as you feel like you need to. One thing to watch out for is not to get too far like this, where we're losing tension in the back knee. You want to keep that knee pushing down and forward. And that's going to stop you right here. It's not going to allow you to really go that much further forward unless you're really hypermobile. But for most of us who are tight through our anterior side of the body, it's really important to make sure that we're just pushing down with the knee and keeping it there as I'm rolling those hips far forward as I can, really trying to create the deepest stretch I possibly can. So something to look out for. Don't get like this and loose back here and light. I need you to stay heavy on this back leg and rolling and pushing forward. Okay? All right, last stretch. I'm just going to finish off with a nice child pose. And with that being said, I'm just going to like open up my thighs. Sometimes you can do a 2-in-1 again. Get those adductors and then sit those hips back and reach. Really take a deep, big breath in here through your belly and exhale. And then reach over to one side. Do the same thing, big breath. Exhale. And then over to the other side, big breath. Exhale. You can always finish with a little calf opener. And that would be it. All right. Hope you enjoyed it.